How does a nation collapse in silence? In the heart of Africa, a country once filled with promise is being torn apart by a war few are talking about. Cities once busy with markets and laughter are now nearly empty. Families flee across deserts and borders with only what they can carry. This is the story of Sudan, and how a power struggle between two armed forces has silently destroyed a nation. The current civil war in Sudan erupted in April 2023, but its roots run far deeper. Two men, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, head of the Sudanese Armed Forces, and Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, widely known as Hemedti, commander of the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, once stood together after ousting longtime ruler Omar al-Bashir in 2019. They promised a transition to civilian rule, but behind the scenes, both built up power, weapons, and influence. By 2023, the fragile partnership cracked. Disagreements over integrating the RSF into the National Army escalated into open conflict, and within hours, Khartoum turned into a battlefield. The fighting spread fast, from Khartoum to Darfur, Kordofan, and the eastern regions. Airstrikes, street battles, and artillery exchanges destroyed homes, hospitals, and communication networks. According to the United Nations, by late 2024, more than 9 million people had been forced from their homes, creating the world's largest displacement crisis. Sudan's capital, once home to over 5 million, saw entire neighborhoods emptied as people sought refuge in neighboring countries like Chad, South Sudan, Egypt, and the Central African Republic. In many parts of Sudan, daily life has become a struggle for survival. Markets rarely open, hospitals run without electricity, food prices have tripled, and clean water is scarce. Humanitarian agencies, including the World Food Programme and UNICEF, report that more than 20 million people need emergency assistance. Yet delivering aid is almost impossible. Roads are unsafe, and warehouses are often inaccessible. Despite these conditions, ordinary Sudanese continue to help one another. Community groups run small kitchens, doctors volunteer in makeshift clinics, and teachers hold lessons under trees for displaced children. While Sudan's suffering grows, global attention has drifted elsewhere. News cycles move quickly, crises compete for visibility, but the human cost in Sudan is staggering. Thousands killed, countless more missing, and entire generations facing an uncertain future. Humanitarian organizations repeatedly warn that without sustained attention and funding, Sudan could face a famine similar to the 1980s disasters that once shocked the world. To understand today's war, we must remember Sudan's long history of conflict. For decades, the country endured civil wars between the north and south, culminating in the secession of South Sudan in 2011. The Darfur conflict in 2003 also left hundreds of thousands dead and displaced millions. Each time peace was declared, deep divisions remained, ethnic tensions, competition for resources, and struggles over political power. These unresolved issues became the fuel for the current civil war. Khartoum, once one of Africa's busiest capitals, is now scarred by destruction. Bridges over the Nile lie twisted. Government offices stand deserted. Residents who remain describe constant fear, the hum of drones at night, the uncertainty of dawn. Yet amid the devastation, resilience survives. Local volunteers clear rubble, provide first aid, and risk their lives to deliver food to neighbors. It is a reminder that even in chaos, humanity refuses to disappear. War has crushed Sudan's already fragile economy. Before 2023, inflation was high but manageable. Now the Sudanese pound has lost most of its value. Fuel and wheat imports are disrupted, and banks struggle to operate. According to the World Bank, more than half of the population now lives below the poverty line. For many Sudanese, survival depends on remittances from relatives abroad or on humanitarian rations when they arrive. Humanitarian workers face immense risks. Convoys are sometimes looted, warehouses seized. Despite this, agencies continue operations from Port Sudan, one of the few stable entry points for aid. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reports that only a fraction of the required funding has been met. Still, Sudanese volunteers, faith groups, and youth networks fill critical gaps, often without recognition. The conflict's ripple effects are regional. More than 1.5 million refugees have crossed into neighboring countries, placing immense strain on their already limited resources. In eastern Chad, camps built for past waves of Darfur refugees now overflow again. South Sudan, itself recovering from years of war, receives tens of thousands of returnees daily. These movements risk destabilizing the broader Sahel region, already struggling with climate stress and security threats. Sudan's future now hangs in the balance. The generation that once hoped for democracy faces displacement and despair. But history shows that every conflict eventually reaches its turning point. For peace to return, both sides, the SAF and RSF, must realize there is no military solution. International mediators continue efforts in Jeddah and Addis Ababa, but ceasefires collapse repeatedly. The path forward will require compromise, accountability, and above all, attention from the global community. Sudan's civil war is not just a political struggle, it is a human tragedy unfolding in silence. We will uncover how hidden interests, gold mines, and foreign influence have shaped this conflict from behind the scenes. The war in Sudan didn't just destroy buildings, it shattered the very fabric of daily life. It began as a rivalry between two generals, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan of the Sudanese Armed Forces and Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, known as Hemedti, leader of the Rapid Support Forces, but it quickly morphed into a national nightmare. By mid-2023, the conflict had torn through the capital, Khartoum, and spread into Darfur, Kordofan, and the eastern regions. Khartoum, once one of Africa's fastest-growing capitals, became a ghost town. Homes were shelled, streets lay empty, and the familiar call to prayer was replaced by the terrifying sound of airstrikes. Markets that once buzzed with life, filled with fruits, fabrics, and spices, were now silent, desolate ruins. The infrastructure collapsed. Electricity grids failed. Water systems broke down. With no functioning government in many areas, local communities had no choice but to fend for themselves. They banded together, sharing food, guarding their neighborhoods, and treating the injured with whatever scarce resources they could find. This war has triggered one of the worst healthcare collapses in modern African history. Even before the conflict, Sudan's medical resources were stretched thin. But by late 2023, the situation had become catastrophic. The World Health Organization reported that over 70% of hospitals in conflict zones were no longer functional. Many were bombed, looted, or occupied by armed groups. Doctors faced impossible conditions. Imagine performing surgery by the light of a cell phone, with no clean water and barely any medical supplies. One volunteer doctor in Khartoum said, "We stopped counting how many we lost. We just tried to save the next one." Children are bearing the heaviest burden. Thousands suffer from severe malnutrition, dehydration, and infections that would be easily treatable in times of peace. Pregnant women have nowhere to go for a safe delivery. Vaccination programs, which are vital for public health, have completely stopped in several provinces. This is more than a war. It's a full-blown humanitarian emergency. The human toll is staggering. According to the United Nations, this is the largest displacement crisis in the world today, with over 8 million people forced from their homes. Nearly 2 million have fled across the borders into Chad, South Sudan, Egypt, and the Central African Republic, seeking refuge. Inside Sudan, millions more are internally displaced, constantly moving from one danger zone to another, often with no clear destination. Families walk for days under the scorching sun, carrying only what they can, a small bag, and their children in their arms. Many don't survive the journey. The refugee camps in neighboring countries are overflowing. Aid agencies are reporting critical shortages of clean water, food, and shelter. People are living under plastic sheets, exposed to the elements, with little sanitation and even less hope for the future. A mother who escaped from Darfur shared her heartbreak. "We left everything behind, our house, our neighbors, even our memories. We only brought what we could carry, our children. Her story is not unique. It's the story of millions. But Sudan's war isn't just a domestic tragedy. It has deep geopolitical roots. The country's strategic location, connecting North Africa, the Middle East, and Sub-Saharan Africa, makes it a prized piece on the geopolitical chessboard. More importantly, Sudan is rich in gold, oil, and fertile land. Control over these resources is fueling the conflict from behind the scenes. Both the SAF and the RSF have reportedly sought support from foreign backers. Analysts point out that the RSF controls many of the gold mines in Darfur, using the profits to finance its war effort. Meanwhile, the Sudanese Armed Forces maintain control over state institutions and key military assets. Foreign powers have been accused of providing money, weapons, and logistical support, each maneuvering to secure influence in a post-war Sudan. And while these powers play their games, ordinary citizens pay the price. The cost of food, fuel, and medicine has skyrocketed. The Sudanese pound has lost most of its value. With banks closed in many areas, people are forced to rely on informal systems just to get by. Economically, Sudan is on life support. The once promising agricultural sector has been decimated, transport routes are destroyed, and foreign investment has vanished. The World Bank has issued a stark warning. Sudan's economy is on the verge of a complete breakdown. In any conflict, it is women and children who suffer the most, and Sudan is no exception. With their schools shut down, over 12 million children, according to UNICEF, have been robbed of their education and their future. Some are forced to work in markets to help their families survive. Others simply wander the refugee camps, searching for food. Sudan is facing the tragedy of a lost generation, an entire cohort of young people growing up without safety, stability, or the chance to learn. Yet, amid this despair, women have emerged as pillars of their communities. Women-led networks are distributing food, running makeshift clinics, and creating safe spaces for displaced families. They are symbols of immense courage and resilience. As one female volunteer in Port Sudan put it, "We have nothing left but hope." And we are trying to share even that. The world watches, but its response has been painfully slow. The United Nations, the African Union, and the Arab League have all called for ceasefires, but none have held for more than a few hours. Peace talks have repeatedly failed, with each side accusing the other of violations. As the fighting resumes, aid delivery is blocked, and the suffering of the people intensifies. While some countries have donated emergency aid, getting it to those who need it is a logistical nightmare. Roads are destroyed, airports are closed, and active violence makes passage nearly impossible. To make matters worse, much of the country is in an internet blackout, cutting people off from the outside world and turning this conflict into what many have called a hidden war. It unfolds largely unseen by global audiences. In the few places with connectivity, Sudanese activists work tirelessly to share stories and videos, desperate to pierce the silence. But even amid the ruins, the spirit of the Sudanese people endures. In Port Sudan, volunteers run community kitchens that feed hundreds of people every day. In the south, teachers hold informal classes under trees, using chalk and cardboard to give children a semblance of normalcy. Local radio stations broadcast survival tips, first aid advice, and messages of hope. These are acts of defiance, a testament to a resilience that headlines often miss. Culture has also become a form of resistance. Poets write about survival and loss. Artists paint murals calling for peace and unity. Musicians record songs on their phones, turning their pain into powerful art. A line from a Sudanese poem went viral, becoming a quiet anthem of strength. "We are broken, but we are still breathing. The dust may cover us, but not our spirit." The humanitarian fallout is devastating. Farmers have missed 2 planting seasons, pushing over 20 million people, nearly half the population, into severe food insecurity. Diseases like cholera and malaria are spreading rapidly in overcrowded camps with no clean water. The education system has collapsed. It will take decades for this generation to recover, even if the war ends tomorrow. By 2024, Sudan is a nation in fragments. The country is a patchwork of zones controlled by different forces, with the central government's authority severely limited. In the absence of a national structure, local communities and tribal leaders have stepped in to maintain order, showing incredible resourcefulness. But without peace, the risk of Sudan breaking apart permanently grows every day. Experts warn that this could destabilize the entire Horn of Africa, from the Sahel to the Red Sea. This conflict affects us all. The refugee crisis is straining neighboring countries like Chad and Egypt. The instability threatens regional security. Sudan's peace is Africa's peace, and its crisis has global consequences. Every crisis begins with human decisions, but so does every recovery. The war in Sudan has shown us the darkest depths of destruction, but it has also revealed the brightest heights of human courage and kindness. As one displaced teacher said, "They destroyed our schools, but they cannot destroy our will to learn." That is the spirit that keeps Sudan alive, even as everything else falls apart. The war in Sudan is not just a political struggle. It is a human tragedy unfolding silently across the nation. While bullets and bombs may dominate headlines for a moment, the long-term consequences are far more insidious. The destruction isn't limited to buildings and infrastructure. It has reached the very land and environment that sustain life. Fields lie abandoned. Wells and irrigation systems are damaged. Livestock have perished. Rivers that once provided water for communities are now polluted or inaccessible due to the conflict. Sudan's environment is under threat like never before. The war has forced millions to flee, leaving agricultural land untended. The Food and Agriculture Organization reports that crop production dropped by more than 40% in 2023 and 2024, creating severe food shortages. Deforestation has increased as displaced families burn wood for cooking and heating. Soil erosion worsens as previously cultivated land lies fallow, and desertification spreads further into rural regions. The loss of livestock, cattle, goats, and camels, has reduced local protein supplies, affecting nutrition. In some areas, water contamination has led to outbreaks of cholera and diarrhea, compounding the health crisis. This environmental collapse threatens Sudan's recovery even after the fighting ends. The war has left Sudan's economy in shambles. Before the crisis, Sudan already struggled with inflation and limited resources. Now the Sudanese pound has lost most of its value, and basic goods like flour, fuel, and medicine have become scarce. Factories and businesses are closed. Ports are disrupted. Trade routes are blocked or destroyed. Farmers cannot plant crops, and merchants cannot sell goods. According to the World Bank, more than half of the population now lives below the poverty line. Unemployment has soared, and people rely almost entirely on humanitarian aid, remittances, or informal work to survive. Even when aid arrives, insecurity can prevent distribution. Convoys are sometimes blocked by armed groups or caught in crossfire. The economic collapse isn't only a national problem, it has regional and global implications. Sudan was once a key exporter of sorghum, wheat, and livestock to neighboring countries. Now, food insecurity spreads beyond its borders, affecting the wider Sahel region. One of the most tragic consequences of this war is its effect on Sudan's children. Schools in conflict zones have been destroyed or converted into shelters for displaced families. UNICEF reports that over 12 million children are out of school, with many unable to continue their education for years. Education is more than learning. It is stability, hope, and the foundation for future recovery. Without it, Sudan risks losing a generation of skilled workers, teachers, and leaders. Yet, amid adversity, some communities have tried to adapt. Teachers have established makeshift schools in camps, using chalkboards and recycled paper. These classrooms are small and informal, but they carry the promise of learning amid chaos. Humanitarian organizations continue to fight a battle of their own. The United Nations, Red Crescent, and local NGOs provide food, water, and medical support wherever possible. Aid workers face extreme risks. Convoys are exposed to attacks, warehouses are vulnerable, and access is limited. Still, tens of thousands of lives have been saved thanks to their tireless work. One aid worker said, "We cannot stop coming. If we leave, who will feed the children, treat the sick, and give hope to those who have lost everything?" Women and children continue to bear the brunt of this war. Many women are now single caregivers, fleeing with their families and facing extreme vulnerability. Refugee camps, overcrowded and undersupplied, are often unsafe for women and girls. Children face malnutrition, interrupted education, and psychological trauma. Humanitarian agencies emphasize mental health support, yet the scale of need is overwhelming. Community initiatives, however, show resilience. Women-led kitchens, health workshops, and small community schools demonstrate the strength and courage of Sudanese citizens. These efforts, while small in scale, highlight humanity's resilience amid conflict. One of the most striking aspects of Sudan's crisis is the global silence. While millions are displaced and thousands killed, media coverage has been minimal. The conflict is complex, and journalists struggle to access key areas. Internet blackouts make reporting even more difficult. This invisible war has allowed the humanitarian crisis to grow unnoticed by much of the world. Only organizations like the UN, Human Rights Watch, and local Sudanese activists continue to share updates. Social media provides glimpses, but these posts rarely reach global attention. And yet, these stories are vital. They are the voices of those living through history. Despite the devastation, efforts for peace continue. International mediators from the African Union, Arab League, and United Nations have facilitated talks in Jeddah and Addis Ababa. Temporary ceasefires have been announced, but they often collapse within hours. The reasons are complex: deep mistrust between the rival factions, competition over gold and resources, and personal power struggles. Peace will require more than talks. It will demand accountability, international support, and long-term commitments to rebuild infrastructure, schools, hospitals, and communities. The road to recovery will be long. Even if the fighting stops tomorrow, Sudan will face an economic collapse that requires rebuilding markets, stabilizing its currency, and creating jobs. Humanitarian recovery will involve providing food, water, medical care, and shelters for millions. The country will need to focus on education and youth support through schools, vocational training, and psychological aid. And most importantly, it will require a new system of governance and justice to ensure accountability, reconciliation, and political stability. Local Sudanese organizations, supported by international agencies, are already planning reconstruction projects. These community-led initiatives show that hope survives, even in the darkest times. Sudan's civil war is a stark reminder that conflicts are more than battles. They destroy lives, futures, and entire nations. And yet, the world often moves on without noticing. Awareness, education, and global attention are crucial. By understanding what is happening in Sudan, we honor the millions of lives affected and ensure their stories are heard. Sudan is not a forgotten country. It is a nation fighting to survive. It is a story of resilience amid devastation, hope amid despair, and humanity amid war. The crisis continues, but attention, awareness, and support can make a difference. Sharing information, supporting humanitarian aid, and educating ourselves about global conflicts are small steps that help the people of Sudan rebuild their lives. This video is intended purely for educational and informational purposes. All content is based on verified, publicly available sources and news reports up to 2025. No political, military, or sensitive advice is given. Viewer discretion is advised when exploring topics of war and displacement. For your safety and privacy, always consume and share responsibly. If you found this video informative, please like, subscribe, and share to raise awareness about global humanitarian crises. Remember, awareness is the first step toward change.